Welcome to the tutorial on how to create a portrait picture that is double exposed. So I'm going to use this picture of this girl and I'm going to superimpose a flag over top of her face and then blend the two together using a variety of tools in Photoshop. So I've already done select all to get this bounding box around the whole picture. Sometimes we call them the marching ants just to show that it's a selection as opposed to part of the picture. Then I'm going to go edit, copy. So I've made a copy of this picture. I'm going to go back here and go edit, paste. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename my layers. So I'm going to call it girl because that's where the girl is. And flag. I can double click and it'll rename it there. The other layer had that box come up to rename it because it was locked as a background layer, and it just does that if you want to rename it, and it unlocks that layer. So now I've got two pictures in one. Of course, the flag is covering up the girl because it was above the girl layer, so that's what I want. Now, before I do anything, what I'm going to do is make this flag see-through. So I have this control here for the layer called opacity. Comes from the word opaque, which means see-through. So I'm going to use this 100% scale, 100% being solid, 0 being invisible. And I'm going to go somewhere halfway in between so I can see the flag and the girl at the same time. It's a great handy feature. So it still obviously doesn't look natural. So what I need to do is reshape it and erase to make it look like I actually painted this image over top of her face. So what I'm going to do is while I'm on the flag layer, so I make sure I click on the flag layer. It's always the case. Sometimes you end up drawing on the wrong layer and it messes up your picture. Thankfully though, you can undo and try again. So I'm going to click on the flag layer, edit, free transform is the one I'm going to start with, and this will allow me to reshape this flag picture. I can resize it. So I'm going to make it a little taller than her face. I'm not going to worry about distorting it. I'm going to make it a little narrower so the red painted bars will go on top of her cheeks there. And then as if I put my cursor outside the box, you can see I get that bent double arrow. What that allows me to do is rotate the picture. So I'm going to put it kind of at the same tilt as her face. I want to eventually match these two parts of the flag over top of her eyes, and you can see that this kind of follows the contour of her mouth. Kind of a lucky matching that I got with this picture. Wasn't planned. Still looks a little bit better, but I still want to get rid of this area. One of the nice things I can do is go to a different transform tool. And you can see that there's a bunch of them. You have these flip and rotate ones that are just kind of one-offs. But then you have things like scale, rotate, skew, distort, perspective. All will change the shape of the flag. So the one I'm going to use, which kind of allows me to do all of this to some degree, is warp. It gives me this grid here, and what it allows me to do is reshape the shape using not just the corners, but these lines as well. So I can kind of make it look more three-dimensional. And I can also drag these corners in. So I'm going to kind of round this square box up. I can drag this line up. Come on. Alright, it's being a little fussy. Drag that down a bit. There we go. There we go. Drag that up a bit. You can see I can also grab inside the square here to reshape it. Now what I want to do is I want to kind of round and widen this leaf over top of her eyes. And it takes a little bit of finesse, but you can do it. And that's not too bad. It just gives it a kind of a rounded feel following the contour of her face. Once I'm happy with this, and again I can switch to other ones as well. I could go to scale and rotate and skew, but I'm happy with it, so I'm going to accept the change by clicking on the check mark. This is cancel. It would reset everything. I'm going to accept the changes. It'll take a moment to adjust that. And there I have it more matched to the shape of her face. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase the parts that I don't want. So this is my eraser tool, kind of halfway down. It looks like an eraser. There's a couple other ones there that are a little bit different, but I'm going to use my basic eraser tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this soft, round pressure opacity eraser. And basically it just gives me a soft edge that gradually goes from being solid on the inside to semi-transparent and then completely invisible on the very edges of my layer, my drawing. I'm going to make this bigger. I'm going to go up to around 400 or so. 360 is fine, maybe a little bit more. And I'm going to start erasing. So I'll start up. I'm going to actually zoom in a bit here with my zoom tool just so it's a little easier to see. And I'm going to just erase the top here. Go around the outside. So you can see it create that soft edge as opposed to a hard edge. And just erase along the top there on her hairline. Okay, get rid of that hard edge there. And then just carefully go up alongside the edge. I want to get rid of all the color from her hair. And it kind of nicely blends it in so it looks like it was a part of her. I'm just going to let go. What that does is it allows me to kind of start again without having to undo the whole thing. This little button here is called your history palette, and you can see I've erased 3 different times. So I've erased, let go, click again, erase. That allows me to go back and forth and undo and redo one thing at a time. If I held the mouse down the whole time, I would have to undo and then start again, as opposed to just starting maybe halfway through. So that's a handy little feature there. I'll just hide that again. So I'm going to just go down along underneath her chin and erase. Make sure I want to be pretty complete here. And there. Now I kind of messed, I didn't get everything along here, but what I'm going to do is zoom in a few more times just so I can see a little bit better. And then I am going to go back to my eraser. It just gives me a little bit more control when I'm zoomed in. Make sure I got everything. There's a little bit there that I missed. A little bit in her ear. Sometimes you can't see those if you're not zoomed in. And then just up the side of her face there. I don't want any paint in the hair. I can use my mouse to go up. I can use this scroll bar as well, of course, to go up and down, left and right. There is a keyboard shortcut for zooming in. It's Control Spacebar. So I can zoom in even a little bit more just to make sure. Fade that a bit. And just along there, just to make sure I've got everything nicely blended in. So the zoom out quick keyboard command is Alt spacebar, and that allows me to zoom out. And there we have it. So I'm going to zoom actually back in on her eyes and erase, because normally I wouldn't paint over top of her eyes. That wouldn't be very kind. So I'm going to make the brush a lot smaller and just erase what was painted over her eyes, just to make it look a little bit more realistic. I'm also going to go down to her mouth. I'll just get the corners here first. make it a little bit bigger and just erase the rest. So obviously I wouldn't paint over her, well, most people wouldn't paint over her teeth, would they? So that just gives it a more realistic look. You would paint over the lips at times. Let's see, and there we have a more realistic looking person. So I'll zoom back out, and there it is. It looks like I had painted that actually onto her face. Now the final step, I'm going to zoom out once more so I have some gray area to work in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call it matte, and what I'm going to do just in Photoshop just for fun is to make it look like it's a framed picture. So what I'm going to do is go down here to my bucket tool, paint bucket tool. It's grouped with the gradient tool, so often you'll just see the gradient tool. You click on it, you'll find the paint bucket. And I'm going to go here to image and canvas size. Image size will make the size of the picture bigger or smaller. Canvas size will add more area to paint in. So I'm going to go to canvas size. I'm going to change it to pixels. I'm going to give it about 1,000 more pixels, so 500 on either side. And we'll go to 500 on either side there as well. We'll approximate it. And what that does is it creates more canvas area. Now, because I've got 3 layers, my flag is covering up the girl is now covering up the matte layer. So what I'm going to do is with my paint bucket, I'm going to choose a nice dark red to kind of match the flag, maybe not exactly. Go to my matte layer, make sure I'm clicked on it again, and fill that in with a nice red color. Now the last thing I want to do is create a picture frame look to it. So I'm going to go to layer style. This is one way you can do it. You could actually draw it by hand as well, of course, but this is fairly quick and easy. So layer style and blending option will give me a window with a list of different things I can do to each one of my layers. And right now I'm on my matte layer, so I'm going to add in these features, a couple of these features onto my matte. So the one that I'm going to use to create the frame is called the stroke. So I'm going to click on that, it checks it, and I can change the size. You can see it's not doing anything, and that's because it's now on the outside of the red, which of course is not even in my picture. So what I need to do is change it to inside. You can see it creates the black there. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, and I'm going to bevel it so that, and I'll go here to the changes, and just to give it a little bit of a different feel. So the size I can change. Don't want to make it too, I'll soften it a bit, too big, because then it just looks a little bit off, because the bevel will look different on all 4 of these edges. And I click OK once I'm happy with it. There's other ones as well, but I'm not going to use those. I don't want to create any shadows, it's fine. And there I've got my framed picture. Now I'm going to go to the girl, and I'm actually just going to put a small little bevel on that as well. Let's see if I go here to size. I can really change the size, but I don't want to do it too much. Make the depth a little smaller, just to give it a little bit of a 3-dimensional feel. Okay, and I'm going to choose down because actually the picture goes behind the matte, and so we'll do it that way. And click OK. Just makes it stand out a little bit more. And there you have it.